What's next for Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I'll tell you what's next. He's going to start next season in Green Bay. He's not going anywhere. He's not. Green Bay's his home. He loves it there, even though sometimes he wants to act like a prima donna. He's not going anywhere, all right? I think that right now there's kind of a chip on the shoulder here for the Packers. Matt LaFleur, in 2 years, he's gone to the NFC Championship twice. He's lost twice. All right, right now the goal is to get over that hump, especially for Aaron Rodgers as well. Think about this right now. Rex Grossman has the same number of NFC Championship wins as Aaron Rodgers does. If he thinks about that, that's got to really, really bother him, especially if I'm Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to leave and go somewhere else. I want to stay where I'm at in the green and yellow and get over the hump and finally win my second Super Bowl trophy. He's not going anywhere because guess what? Jordan Loving is not the answer. I don't know why they drafted that guy. Maybe it was to motivate Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it seemed to work, but he's not going anywhere.
And we look at Rodgers, one of the greatest regular season quarterbacks of all time. And you can kind of compare him to Peyton Manning in terms of postseason success, having to deal with Tom Brady. And I'm sure Rodgers is really trying to get back to that Super Bowl because that's the one thing that's holding him back from everyone really saying that he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. We say Aaron Rodgers is really talented, but he's one of the greatest arm talents, but he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but he just doesn't have the postseason success. So for Aaron, that's got to sting. Every single year he gets so close. We talk about 2014 NFC Championship to Seattle. They blew that lead. Last year against San Francisco wasn't competitive, and now this year they just collapsed in the second half against Tampa Bay, although they did put up a good fight. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I got to say, hey, I'm not retiring until I get to the Super Bowl. Whatever happens, but it's going to be in Green Bay. He'll be suiting up next year, and it's no worries about that.
But also, I will say, I will hold the team more accountable next year because you got to draft more receivers, got to draft some more defensive guys, maybe clear some cap space, cut Preston Smith or something like that. You can't have what you had in last year's draft. I thought it was amazing that the Packers still won all those games with such a bad draft.
Yeah, it was not a good draft at all. So if I'm Aaron Rodgers, you say, hey, look, guys, I only got a few years left. You're kind of screwing me over here. Let's get this together.
So I'm going to disagree a little bit. First, I'm going to say that I think Rodgers is a Packer next year. I did see something on PFT from Mike Florio saying that he wanted a new contract, which if that's the case, that's going to be interesting over the summer and how they pull that off. And then the thing with Jordan Love, I agree 100% that it was not a smart decision. But at the same time, if 2 years from now, if Jordan Love is the starting quarterback for the Packers and is playing well, we'll look back on this and think, okay, it was not a bad decision because they still went 13-3. They still made the NFC Championship game. They're right where they were last year at this time, and they got Jordan Love without a receiver. Now they can go to this draft to get a receiver. They still got Jordan Love under contract. If they can keep Rodgers, under contract within a couple of years as well, still continue to be good, and then do what they did with Favre and Rodgers. You put Love in after 3 years. Maybe he is as good as I think he is. And the Packers continue another decade of dominance. And if that happens, we'll look back at this and go, oh, you know what? That was a smart decision. The Packers are far and away smarter than the rest of us because we all thought it was a dumb decision. Not saying that will happen, but it definitely could happen. But as far as the contract thing with Aaron Rodgers, I'm assuming he's probably going to go for more guaranteed money if he does want a new contract. I can imagine he's going to extend it for more years than he already has. I think he's under contract now through 2023. So my guess is he's probably going to want more of that front-loaded money. Which could change the salary cap a little bit. So I don't know how they're going to go about fitting in Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams if that's the case. They both may end up walking in free agency. And then we got A.J. Dillon as a rookie contract right now. He could be the next running back next year.
The thing with Aaron Rodgers leaving, I can't see a scenario he's going to leave. I think he said that because he's just very high on emotions right now. I think he's a little pissed off with some play calling and some executions by his teammates throughout that game, which is a reason why he could feel like that at the moment. But I don't think there's just such a high asking price if you're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I can't imagine what a team has to offer to get Aaron Rodgers. Plus, you have to pay him that contract, which I believe he's getting over $35 million right now. So with that being said, I think he will be starting for the Green Bay Packers next year. Here's the thing. This was a little bit of a legacy stain. It has to be. He had opportunities to deliver, and he didn't. Like, he could have been better late down the stretch, and he wouldn't. This now, you have the Seattle NFC Championship loss. You have last year against the 49ers, which the 49ers were clearly the better team. But this year, there was no excuses. The proof is in the pudding. You have the best receiver in the league. You got a great offensive play caller. You were better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You had the number one seed, home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. I mean, how much more could you ask for? It was right there for him, and he didn't get it done. So I just believe this was an opportunity for a guy who's been regarded as a top 2 talent from a talent perspective, top 2 in the history of football. If you're going to ask me, probably behind Patrick Mahomes. And he's had too many playoff letdowns. He has. A guy of that caliber, his team should be more successful. Like you have to look at it like that. His team, I'm not a believer that you give all the credit to the quarterbacks when they win Super Bowls, win or loss. I just think a player of Rodgers' caliber, they should be better. And honestly, I don't think they're ever going to recover from this. I don't. I believe when you have heartbreaking losses in sports and emotional losses, I just feel like that franchise will never recover. A few instances I could refer back to on the Cleveland Indians in baseball in 2016, they blew a 3-1 lead. And then in 2017, they were in the ALDS, we're up 2-0. What have the Indians done since then? Nothing. The Atlanta Falcons were up 28-3 in the Super Bowl late in the third quarter. We all know that story. Matt Ryan won the MVP. The Falcons were 15-1. Where have the Falcons been ever since then? There's been many, many occasions. And another team, how am I forgetting this? The Philadelphia Eagles haven't been back ever since Nick Foles took them to the divisional round. The Eagles really haven't been relevant. And I'm thinking of one other team. Oh, the New Orleans Saints. The Saints had 4 brutal losses in the playoffs. And it all started with the Stephon Diggs miracle. Once that happened, they never recovered. Then you have the pass interference play. Then he gets outplayed by Kirk Cousins. Then he gets outplayed by Tom Brady. Now it looks like Drew Brees got to retire. I'm scared that this is the same thing for Aaron Rodgers. This was an emotional loss, back-to-back NFC Championship games, and after that, I don't think they have much of a future. Sure, they could get to the playoffs. Sure, Rodgers could have a few decent years left, but in terms of winning championships, I think his championship window closed. And another team I didn't even remember. I mean, this doesn't really compare. But the New York Jets in 2009, 2010, back-to-back AFC Championship games, have not seen them since. So, I mean, haven't made the playoffs since, rather. So, I mean, looking at that, when you just have emotional losses, it's really hard to recover, and you're always going to have hangovers. And I think that's the same thing for the Packers, honestly. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll add one more to that list. I was pointing to my hat here. I don't know if you could see it or not, but it's the 49ers. You know, we had that Kaepernick year where we came down, 3 yards to the end zone. And then, 2 years later, no one that's even on that team is even there anymore. The coach is gone. The GM was fired. So on and so forth. We fell apart after that. And then even last year, I mean, we had it in the fourth quarter. We had it in the bag. We lost that game. Now, granted, we had a ton of injuries this year, but going into this season here, there's questions around our quarterback. Is Jimmy G going to be our quarterback next year? There's all kinds of trade rumors with Deshaun Watson. Those are things that if we win that game last year, we're not talking about right now, but we are because we lost, last year. So that's a perfect example of that same situation you just mentioned.
Seattle Seahawks, right? The 1 yard line. Cannot forget about that one. Can't forget about that one as well. But I will say, to maybe look at the half glass full side of things. When the New York Jets beat the Patriots in the divisional round all those years ago, I'm a Jets fan, right? Patriots seem to recover, right? I mean, you could say that was kind of an emotional loss for Tom Brady and the Pats.
Divisional rival, yeah.
It's a rivalry.
When it's the Patriots and Brady losing, it doesn't count. It's more of a fluke than a heartbreaking loss, if we're going to be real.
True, but if you want to look at the bright side of things, I think Aaron Rodgers could recover. The team is talented for a reason. What makes a great athlete is a great mindset. If Aaron Rodgers has a great mindset, I can't answer that because some days he's a playboy and other days he's like Mr. All-Star. So it really depends on what side of the bed he wakes up on. But I really do think he can recover and come back from it. I have faith in Aaron Rodgers. I have faith in Matt LaFleur. 2 years, 2 straight championships. You got to get over the hump sometime. I do think they can recover.
Yeah, I mean, I think about teams, the teams that we've been naming. It's so tough to get over the hump, to get to a championship game, to get to a Super Bowl, especially in consecutive years. The fact that we're talking about the Packers, maybe they won't be back next year. Maybe this is a comparable situation to the other teams that we named. That, to me, I have to disagree with that. The Packers just got the 2 NFC. It's so hard to get the 2 NFC championships in a row. If we look at the 49ers, all it took was a couple injuries to their players, and they couldn't even make the playoffs. A team that just went to the Super Bowl, that had the best defense in football, and had a good enough offense and run game to get them to the Super Bowl and almost beat the Kansas City Chiefs, who we're looking at as the next NFL dynasty. So I think we just need to slow roll in the Packers. The game just ended. I know that there's a lot of things here that we could speculate about. Maybe the Packers are done, maybe they're not. But this team is really talented. If they don't even make it to a championship game next year, that's going to hurt Rodgers' legacy. But for me, it's not gonna be a stain for me. For Rodgers, if he gets to another Super Bowl, that's cool. But it's so difficult to be able to get to a Super Bowl that I'm totally okay with Aaron Rodgers ending with one Super Bowl, because I think he's had a good enough career to call him as one of the better quarterbacks that we've ever seen.
Yeah, he's one more than Dan Marino too. So
okay, that's true. Yeah,
you prove the point though that it's so hard to get back to go to two NFC Championship games. So why am I to believe they were going to get to a third? It's an emotional loss, and it carries over. That's why all those teams we named haven't ever got back there, because it's an emotional loss, and the Atlanta Falcons were still a great team in 2017, I think it was. It's still the same team that they had when they went to the Super Bowl. Then what happened? You see that with the Legion of Boom in 2014. It's an emotional loss. You just don't ever recover, because it's so hard to get to that spot to begin with. And then to try to get there a third time and then actually win that game, I'm not betting for it. I've been saying throughout the playoffs, I've been on the Buccaneers train that they will make the Super Bowl since October. If you don't believe me, you can scroll through my profile, and I made that take in, I think, October. But with that being said, I just felt like the Packers, year after year, every time we think that they're going to make it, they just don't. Something will happen along the way. And Rodgers is a guy who's a borderline Mount Rushmore type quarterback in the history of football. Some may say John Elway has that final spot. I think it's pretty safe to say that the top three spots are Brady, Montana, Manning. Those are the top three spots. And that fourth spot, a few names that could be in that mix. Rodgers is one of them. John Elway is one of them. Johnny Unitas is one of them. Another Super Bowl appearance, and especially a win, would solidify Rodgers to get that spot. And with this year, that there was no team better than them. There was no team in the NFC better than the Green Bay Packers. He was the best quarterback in the league with 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, winning league MVP, had the best receiver in the league, home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Like, he couldn't have been set up more. And overall, he did fail. Even though he had a good game, good is not good enough. You need to be great. You need to be heroic. You need to be historic to be a guy you want to consider a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. That's just why I don't believe that we could just let this slide or ignore it.
What makes this emotional, right? Because you look at the Atlanta Falcons, right? They blew a 28-3 lead. You look at the Cleveland Indians. They had a 3-1 lead, right? Next year, 2-0 in the division series, right? San Francisco, they had the lead in the fourth quarter. With Green Bay, yes, they lost the game, but there wasn't really a play that defines like, oh, man, we had it in the bag, because Green Bay never really did have it in the bag. The Buccaneers were kind of just leading the whole time. Green Bay was kind of playing comeback, right? Seattle, they gave it up at the 1 yard line. They had the chance to win. I can't really find the play that makes it gut-wrenching. Yes, you lost, but you were still playing comeback. New Orleans, Minnesota Miracle, bad PI call. Can't really find the same here with the Packers game.
Yeah, I mean,
but just because it was in the fourth quarter doesn't mean there were still two similar type plays. I already addressed those two plays. The one before halftime, that was a killer, and then coming out of halftime, the fumble. That was 14 points right there. That was literally the game. It just wasn't necessarily late in the fourth quarter like we see with Seattle or Atlanta blowing the league or other games that you mentioned. It just happened in that time. Then, yes, they were playing catch-up. But, again, they still had opportunities late in that game. People are questioning if Rodgers should have ran the ball on third down, make it a 4th and 4 from the 4-yard line. Then you could go for it and tie the game right then and there. So it's still an emotional loss because you had Super Bowl aspirations. More of when you're an underdog trying to, I wouldn't say the Browns had an emotional loss going against the Kansas City Chiefs in the division round because they exceeded expectations already. If the Buccaneers lost, that wouldn't have been an emotional loss because they didn't have expectations to win. The Buccaneers getting to the NFC Championship game under Tom Brady, and for Tom Brady's sake, that's exceeding expectations. The Packers failed. If the Buccaneers failed, if the Buccaneers lost, I wouldn't call that a failure because of their expectations. Players and fans and their teammates do think about these things, that when you have expectations, there's a certain amount of pressure on you. So that's why I do think this is a big deal for Rodgers and for the Packers.
Well, let me chime in here. So I'm going to give you two examples where the precedent is set where they have gotten over that emotional sort of thing. And one of them is my team, the 49ers. We went to 3 straight championship games back. We had Kaepernick and Alex Smith, combination of the two. And we had a couple heartbreaking. I mean, we had the one with the punt that was muffed. They recovered it. They ended up beating us. We came back the next year, went to Super Bowl, ended up losing in Super Bowl. The other precedent that's been set is with the Packers themselves. I mean, they were in this spot exactly last year, lost that game, and then they've since recovered and come back and had an even better year, ended up in the same spot as they did last year. So to completely write them off, I wouldn't do that. I will say it will be very, very tough. I think the NFC is got a lot of great teams, so it's going to be very hard to go 13-3 again next year, get home field advantage again next year, and get back to the same game. But I don't think we can write them off completely and just say, no, they're not going to make it because of this emotional game. I think that they still have the talent to do it. I think first and foremost, get Aaron Rodgers happy, whatever it takes, draft a receiver, whatever it takes, sign Aaron Jones if they have to sign him, whatever it takes to get him happy and have him have another career year next year to get back to this game once again.